So the topic for today would be using Wireshark captures and mirroring for troubleshooting. We got a lot of customers and partners coming to us for help regarding this. So I thought it would be a good chapter to focus on. Uh, and I think you also should be able to use this tool in future for any issues related to the network. So we'll see how we can use Wireshark and how what filters we can use, etc. So these are the numbers to join in for audio, and for the video you can join using uh, the link that is given in the webinar invite email. These are the topics that I will be covering today. So I'll give you a brief introduction about how Wireshark works. Uh, Probably many of you are aware of how it works, etc. But I will try to put in as much as information as possible. We'll see how the mirroring functionality on a switch can also be used to take the Wireshark captures. We'll see a little bit of Wireshark filters and a use case and question answer session. So as you are all aware, most of you I think should be using Wireshark only. There are other network protocol analyzer tools on the market, but Wireshark is the one that's most used today, as much as I am aware. Uh, so basically, what this does is it gives you uh, a packet level understanding of the of your network as to what is exactly happening. You can start a capture on your PC. You can start a capture on the switch. So you need to connect your PC to the switch and connect the capture. You can start a capture on uh, on a on your server, etc. So what happens is you get a lot of information about what is the traffic that is passing in your network. So using this traffic, what you can do is you can analyze the traffic and you can troubleshoot issues that are happening in your network. One thing is it is available free of charge, so you can just go into Google and you can do a download Wireshark. You can download the Wireshark tool and run it, and it's got a lot of filters as well. We'll see how we can use the filters for Wireshark. So some of the features, there are a lot of other features as well, but I've just covered what will be required for this session alone. So one thing is, like I said before, there are a lot of protocols that are there nowadays, and network protocols, and using Wireshark, you can inspect what is actually happening in with those protocols. Uh, where what is each protocol meant for. Actually, if you study Wireshark, you can get a lot of information of how each protocol works. So it's very important. One thing, another thing is you can get live capture as to exactly at that time what is happening on the network, and then you can just save that capture and open it later on and check what is exactly happening in the network. You can do either live capture or you can check it later on also. So you can use it on Windows, Linux, OS, Solaris, FreeBSD, and lots of other platforms. I think basically most of you would be using the first three, Windows, Linux, and OS. So that is more than enough, I think so. And next point is you get a lot of filters that you can use, and getting used to the filters will take time because there are a lot of filters. You can also Google those filters up as well, and we'll see a few filters for today. You can actually using filters, you can get the exact information that you are looking for. Probably if you're looking for some uh, source IP or destination IP or one particular MAC address, or if you're looking for some particular protocol. So the filters will help you to understand or to filter out whatever traffic is necessary for you, because Wireshark will capture everything on the network. So you do not want, there'll be a lot of information. So you filter out whatever you require using the filters. You can also use it for VoIP analysis. Uh, It supports a lot of formats. Mostly we use the .pcap format. That's how it's saved, but it can be used for other formats as well. And it can also be used with Ethernet, ATM, Bluetooth, PPP, token ring frame relay. I think if we are able to cover Ethernet for now, it should be more than enough, I guess. So, so Wireshark needs to be used along with mirroring. Say, for example, you want information that is going to a switch or a router, etc. So in that case, you would need to use mirroring and capture those traffic. You need to send the traffic on the switch onto another PC which is connected. We'll see how mirroring is done, etc. But so mirroring has to be used along with Wireshark to get the traffic on the switch also. And so what mirroring actually does is so whatever traffic that is coming into the switch or any particular port, it mirrors that traffic onto another port which is called as a monitor port. And on the monitor port you can connect a PC, and on the PC you can run Wireshark. So what happens is all the information that you're trying to capture from the switch is getting mirrored onto another port, and that port is sending all the traffic onto the PC where you're running the Wireshark. So this all the packets will get replicated on your PC as well. So you can view what is exactly happening in the switch, what traffic the switch is receiving, or on what port it is receiving, etc. So when you're mirroring a port, you can. This is for exhaust switches. I'm saying when you're mirroring a port, you can get the ingress traffic and the egress traffic as well. Ingress as in coming into the switch, the traffic that is actually coming into the switch, and egress as in the traffic which is going out. So when you're mirroring a port, the ingress traffic is mirrored as well as the egress traffic. Whereas when you're mirroring information about VLAN, when you do mirroring for a VLAN, only the ingress interfaces are mirrored. So only ingress traffic is mirrored when you're doing for a VLAN. As I mentioned previously, for mirroring, you are generally using it only for packet capture. Basically, I think all the vendors support mirroring. Most of the vendors support mirroring. So in extreme switches, you have two modes for port mirroring. One is called as the standard mode, and the other is the enhanced mode. The standard mode is available on all switches, and on the standard mode, it only supports one mirror port, and you can also create filters for mirroring. I mean, what type of traffic you want to capture. You want to capture it on the port or on the VLAN, etc. So when you're doing standard mode, if you take a filter for mirroring, if the packet captures both an ingress and an egress filter, only the ingress packet is mirrored. That is, only the ingress traffic is mirrored when you're using standard mode. Whereas in uh, enhanced mode is actually not available in the older PD8 key switches, but it is supported on the other switches, and it is not supported on the Summit X450 as well. Uh, so in enhanced mode, main difference is you can mirror several ports at the same time. So you want traffic from maybe 5 ports on a switch to be mirrored and sent to for monitoring. You can do that using enhanced mode. And there is also an option for remote mode mirroring. If the switch is located very far off, you can do. Want to capture the traffic, you can use remote mirroring. What I would suggest is like you can use remote mirroring, but just learn how to do normal mirroring and learn to use Wireshark, and then you can go ahead and use remote mirroring only when required. So in enhanced mode, for the filter, as I was stating, if there is both an ingress and an egress filter, both the packets are mirrored in enhanced mode. So this is typically how we will mirror the traffic. So if you see, there is port 1 and port 8, and what we're doing is, maybe you have uplinks on the switches. These are called as 1 and 8 are called as monitor ports. Very important to note. So you need to understand these terms. Uh, these are called monitor ports because this is where we will be running our Wireshark captures. So we are actually monitoring the traffic from here only. So most important thing to note is that the monitor ports will not belong to any particular VLAN. So when you're configuring this, configuring the monitor ports, the switch would throw up an information telling you that the monitor ports cannot belong to any particular VLAN, and it will be removed from that any VLAN. So you need to give yes when configuring the monitor ports. So say you want to mirror the traffic on ports 10 and 15. What you're going to do is you're going to send that traffic, mirror the traffic from 10 and 15 onto the monitor ports which are 1 and 8. Uh, so these are the filters which are supported. Uh, this is not the Wireshark filters I'm saying. This is only for mirroring. How you can filter what kind of traffic you can use. You can capture traffic from a physical port, or you can capture traffic from VLAN. When you're using a VLAN, you only get the ingress traffic, and you can use a virtual port. Virtual port is nothing but your physical ports along with your VLAN. So that's also only ingress traffic, and you can use access control lists as well to divert your traffic. You can create 128 traffic filters using access control lists, and you can have up to 16 VLANs or virtual ports, mirroring ports. Well, please note this is not the monitor ports, but this is the ports you can mirror. That is the actual traffic for which you want to check, which are the ports that you want to check. So that's what we mean by mirroring ports and monitor ports. Monitor ports are where you will run the packet captures or run Wireshark, and mirror ports are where the actual traffic you will capture. So you can have up to 16 monitor ports. So you can have about 16 PCs connected and running Wireshark, and you can send the traffic all into that. Generally, so much of monitor ports are not required, but that depends on what the issue is that you are facing, and so that will depend basically on that. The remote mirroring can be used using destination VLAN ID only. So for mirroring, what we are going to do, these are the commands that you will use. It's very simple commands. So you would say the first command would be enable mirroring to port. This is the monitor port that you're configuring. So you would say enable mirroring to port. For example, in this uh, screen here, 1 and 8 will be the monitor ports. So you would say enable mirroring to port 1, 8. So you're monitoring two of the ports. So very important note, when you're saying enable mirroring to port, it is actually the monitor ports that you're configuring. And to add a filter, what you would do is configure mirroring, add port. So this is the port where you want the traffic to be mirrored from. So either it's VLAN traffic or some traffic on the port or the uplink ports, etc. So this is what you will use. Configure mirroring, add port. And if you want to add VLAN information also, you can use this command configure mirroring, add VLAN, or whatever if you want the VLAN information. So I just put a note down here. So monitor port should not be part of any VLAN, as I mentioned previously. And to view the mirroring configuration, this will be the command that you would use, show mirroring. So we'll go back to Wireshark again. I've just taken a screenshot of Wireshark. I will show you. I will run a capture that I've already taken, and we'll use that to gain more information about Wireshark. So this is how typically a Wireshark capture looks like. So this is some traffic we've taken from the network. We've used mirroring and we've connected the PCs and captured the traffic. So if you look on the top here, it states, it gives number, time, source, destination, protocol, length, info. So that's from there. That is where actually the you have information about the captures. So serial number, you all know what is nothing but, and time, basically it is giving you the time between different packets from the time that you started the capture. So then you have source information, the source IP address, etc. It's listed, and then you have destination and the protocol, length and information about that particular packet. So that's the top part. If you look at the bottom, uh, I'll show the bottom part as well. We will look at so if you see the bottom part, if you it lists information like such as frame, Ethernet, address resolution protocol. That is actually it is giving you information about each packet that you captured on top. So on top you have just general information, and at the bottom, so this capture is much it gives you more information. So if you click on the each of the packet on top, you get information about that particular packet at the bottom here. So if you see, it mentions Ethernet, Internet Protocol, transmission protocol. So that's giving you information about each particular packet. So what protocol it is, uh, what is the source and destination address, what is the IP address, source and destination, what is the uh, uh, transport protocol, which is UDP or transmission control, TCP, anything. And it gives you information about each packet as well, like what are the contents in each of these layers. So basically, you need to have some information about what is happening at each layer to understand Wireshark. So we are basically looking here at only up to the information about layer 4. So physical layer information is not that. So from layer 2, that is, you see the Ethernet 2 it says. So here you have basically information about the MAC address, the source and destination MAC address. And at layer 3 you have the IP address information. So this is your routers generally look up information up to your layer 3. So you have your source IP address, your destination IP address. There are other fields as well, so you need to understand what a layer 3 packet looks like. So you have time to load information, fragment offset, header checksum. There's lots of information over here. And at layer 4, you have the transmission control protocol. Since this is a TCP packet, mm, transmission control protocol, you have the port information. This is not the physical port, uh, and you have a lot of information as well, like what happens in TCP, window size, your SYN, information, etc., and segment length. A lot of information over here as well. So unfortunately, I can't go through what each header uh, information is available. Uh, so I can't cover all that. So we'll. So once you've downloaded Wireshark and once you start, this is where you will start capture. So this is the screen that will open up once you've downloaded Wireshark, and so you need to choose which uh, interface that you want to start the capture on. So whether it is a wireless NIC that you want information about, or you want information about your NIC card, your LAN NIC card. So this is how you would start it. So these are some of the filters that you'll use. I think before I go into all this, I will just show you. I will just look at a couple of Wireshark captures. So I was mentioning, uh, see, you see the top part here where I'm marking each one. So you're getting information about all the packets here generally. So here we are seeing a lot of. It just says it's TCP. It's a TCP connection between a client and to some server or some information like that. So if you click on each one here, the information for each packet, what is the source and destination MAC, what is the IP address, what is the TCP information, everything will be listed at the bottom. So if you can click on the plus here, and it will start. You can see more information related to that. So first I'm checking information about the MAC addresses. So if you see here, there is the destination MAC and the source MAC address. It's a very useful tool because you will need to filter using the sometimes using the source MAC address or the destination MAC address, and if you need to see the information that you're if the if that is the exact information that you're looking for, or you're looking for some particular source MAC address, you can just look it up here, or you can use the filter to get that traffic. So this, you have information about uh, the data link layer, which is nothing but your MAC address layer. And then if you click here, you have information about the IP address. So you have the source IP address. We look here, and then you have information about the destination IP address, and rest are all information about uh, the IP header. So there are a lot of flags here that you need to understand. It's pretty interesting. If you Google up this information, you will understand what each field stands for, and you can understand how the traffic, what each of those fields are used for. Then at the last, at layer 4, you have your TCP header information. So you have the source port, the destination port, and TCP as well. There is a lot of information in the TCP header. So this is actually an ACK. Lots of information to study about the header as well, but I'm not covering all of that. Uh, you just, if you're able to just understand what these are, is pretty much enough. So we'll go to the filters here. So on the top you have a field which states filter, and if, for example, uh, if you're looking for uh, Ethernet, let's say I just copy this. So we'll try to filter using source MAC address. So the filter you will use is ETH, because there is a lot of information here in this capture. How are you going to look up each and everything? So it's not possible. For this, you need to use filters. So it gives you exact information about what you're particularly looking for. So ETH.src equal to, and you paste the MAC address there. So the filter, you can Google up the information about the filters. So what I used is ETH.src, which is Ethernet.source equal to, and I pasted the MAC address. And when I do an enter, it's actually filtering only information about, it's showing me information only related to that particular source MAC address. So all of this information is only for that. Now, there's still much more filtering you can do. Uh, you can also, if you want to use destination, all you have to do is eth.bst, and equal to, you will mention the destination um, address, MAC address. Or we can do one thing like e.c. That is, I am using the IP address for filtering the traffic. So ip.src equals, just give it 68. So I'm using this IP address. I'm just trying to filter out information related to this IP address. So it's giving me only information about the only packets which have the source IP address as 168.235.195.3. So using that, you can just check. You do not want to waste your time looking at all the other unnecessary information. You can check only what you want. Or let's say you want information about radius. I'm not sure if there is any radius packets here, but we can check. No, I don't think so. So what we'll do, we'll look for some DHCP information. That is, any client has requested for a DHCP. So based on protocol basis. So for DHCP, we would say boot P. It's the protocol that is used by DHCP. So you give enter. So it's filtered you information only about the DHCP protocol. So you have some information related to that alone. So you can take out each one and check out what information that you are looking for. That's the power of the filters. So go back into that. So these are some of the filters. I already showed you some filters. So you can also use. You can actually Google up the information related to filters, and it's not as though everybody has information about all the filters that are available. There is quite a lot of filters that are available. So as you use them, you will start understanding them. So for example, here, if you want to see only SMTP, port 25 and ICMP traffic, this would be the filter that you will use. TCP.port EQ25 or ICMP. So, or if you want to see only traffic in the LAN 192.168 between workstations and servers, no internet, this is what you would use. IP.src, I showed you. You mentioned the IP address, and then you mentioned the IP.dst, which is destination, equal to 192.168.0.0/16. So you can get information about network also. You want everything on one particular network, you can get that information also. Some filters match multiple protocol fields. So for example, if you say IP.ADDR, you will get information about the source and the destination address as well. So it all depends on how you want to use the filter. So we'll go into the next one. Okay. I felt using a use case would be good to get a better understanding of how we use Wireshark and the mirroring and how to resolve issues in the network. Uh, I had a case where one of the customers were stating that the clients on in one particular campus were not able to get the IP address uh, from the DHCP server, and they were stating that maybe one of the switches was causing the issue. In fact, not one of the switches, all the switches which were connected to the clients, randomly there were issues happening. They were stating that the PCs were not able to get the IP address. So what I asked them, so this is generally how it was in simple terms. This is how it was connected. Actually, client is connected to an Extreme switch, and then they had some third-party switch, which was then connected to the DHCP server. And what was happening was that the clients were not randomly at some locations. The clients would not get an IP address, and they were receiving complaints. It was not happening all the time. It only happens once in a while. So uh, what I did was I asked them to take a packet capture of the on the switch, on the Extreme switch, uh, and on the DHCP server at the same time. So if you see, I have explanation about that. Yeah. So the client was, for example, if it is connected on port 1, and the uplink to the third party switch was port 24, and I asked them to connect a monitor PC on port 10, so that I get the information from port 1 and port 24 on the Extreme switch. So I wanted to see whether the DHCP packets from the client was coming into port 1 and was exiting out of port 24 towards the third party switch. I also asked the customer to take a capture at the DHCP server, so that we could see if this packets were making it to the DHCP server. So before this capture and everything, what the clients used to do is they would just randomly go, it's a big campus, they would just walk around, they would go reboot the Extreme switch, or they would reboot the third party switch, or just connect, unplug, replug cables. They didn't know what was happening. They just knew that the clients were not getting an IP address. So if you need to narrow it down as to actually what is happening, you need to use Wireshark. You need to see what is actually happening in the network and then start troubleshooting instead of blindly going around and rebooting things. It's going to make things worse actually. And so so what I told them to do is I asked them to monitor port 1 and port 24. Um, So what I would do is I would send the traffic from port 1 and 24 onto port 10, where I connected a PC, and on the PC I ran Wireshark captures. So this way what I would be able to see is, if the Extreme switch is causing an issue, I should see the traffic coming into port 1 and going out through port 24. And if it comes in through port 1 and I do not see it going out of port 24, it means it's an issue with the Extreme switch. Or if I don't see it coming into port 1, it means the client is not sending me the information that I need to relay to the DHCP server. And next capture I asked them to do was on the DHCP server, so that I could see that if whatever I'm sending, the DHCP server was receiving it. So this is what the case was. And I will like briefly explain about how the DHCP process works. Many of you must be aware of this. So the client initially sends a DHCP discover packet, which is a broadcast, because it doesn't know what its IP address is. So it's going to send to the server requesting for an IP address. And what the server does is, on receiving it, on depending on what VLAN it came from, is going to send back a DHCP offer packet. And the client then sends back a DHCP request confirming that it's going to use that particular IP address. And the DHCP finally needs to send back an acknowledgement telling, okay, you can use this, and it's going to give it the lease time and all the other configuration related to DHCP. So this is how briefly the DHCP works. And so in our case, I wanted to see what is exactly happening uh, with this customer. So this is what I asked them to do. First, I asked them to note down the MAC address of the client where the PC was connected, and then mirror the ports on the switch where the client is connected, and connect a PC for the monitoring the traffic, and then run Wireshark on the server and the monitor ports on the switch as well, and then save it, and I asked them to send it to me for analysis. So I'll show you. This was actually a real capture I had taken from the customer. So what I did was, once I got the capture, I could filter out using the MAC address, but I didn't want any unnecessarily dealing with it, because I knew only there was only an issue with the uh, DHCP. So I just used bootp to filter out the traffic. And what you would notice here is that, so at this time, which is 108.237, there is a DHCP packet. This is actually a discover packet, which is the first packet sent by the client. So another way to check this is, all at one particular time, I mean within I think a client sends about 4 or 5 discover packets to get an IP address, and if it doesn't receive it, it configures something called as an APIPA address or an auto configuration address. So first time it sends the discover packet. It's a broadcast. So I was seeing that in the switch, uh, I was the packet was ingressing. So I had mirrored 2 ports, isn't it? So I was able to see that the packet was ingressing the switch, and this is the same packet which is egressing the switch. So I've mirrored 2 ports. So I'm getting one which is coming in, and the same packet is going out. Another way to check if it is the same, I mean, if it is from one particular client, or for every discover, or 4 or 5 discover packets that is going to send, the transaction ID will be the same. So it will look for about 1 or 1.5 minutes for getting an IP address. So every time, so first minute it sends one discover packet, then about 4 seconds again it sends discover packet, then the interval increases a little, then it goes to about 15 seconds or so, and it just increases a little by little, and it sends about 4 discover packets. So for all those 4 packets, the transaction ID is going to be the same. So I was looking at a small time frame, and during this time frame, you could see that the packet was coming into the switch. This was the second packet is going out of the switch onto the third-party switch, and then after some time. So how you find out is that uh, this this should be pretty close by this time interval, so ingressing and egressing the switch, and then after some time it sends another discover packet, because it's once it sends a discover packet, it's expecting an offer from the DHCP server. Since it doesn't receive it, after some time it's sending the discover packet again. So if you'll see, again 2 packets are going, ingressing and egressing the switch, and then it waits, it still doesn't receive any offer packet, and then again it sends uh, a discover packet. Again, it's going through both the ports, and it still doesn't receive it. That you can check by the time. You see, these times are very close by, uh, within just milliseconds, which means it's ingressing and egressing the switch. And we have monitored, I mean, we are mirroring 2 ports. So that is how you find the difference. And so this is how I was able to make out that the traffic was actually uh, ingressing and egressing the switch, but we are not getting a reply back from the DHCP server. So either the issue should lie on with the third-party switch, or there should be some issue with the DHCP server. So I had also asked them to run a capture on the DHCP server. When we ran on the DHCP server, we could see that these packets were actually making it into the server, but the server was not responding for them at that particular time. So you should actually take a capture, or you should mirror the traffic when the issue is occurring. Only then you can see what is actually happening. So I didn't just conclude based on one capture. I asked them to run at different locations at different times, and this was another location as well, and this had the same issue as well. So this is a different packet. Don't get confused with this inform. but this is actually the transactions that I'm looking for. So, so if you look here, one of the clients, it is uh, for this also I had two ports mirrored on the port where the client was connected and the uplink port as well. So you will see two discover packets ingressing and egressing the switch. Similarly, after some time it waits and it sends again two more packets. All these are discover packets, but I don't see any offer packets. So unless I receive an offer packet, the client is not going to send back a request. So this is how I was able to conclude that the DHCP server was actually not responding with the offer packet, and I used this as proof and I showed the customer that this is where you need to troubleshoot and find out why the DHCP server was not responding. And then the customer had they had checked with the client of the the vendor of the DHCP server, and they made some changes, and after that I haven't heard back from the customer. So generally, if you don't hear back, it means they don't have any issues. But actually, we were able to resolve the issue. So and this is how we were able to find out what is actually happening. So instead of when you have an issue, instead of running around, going and rebooting things and trying to get things working, uh, try if you can. If you can just mirror the ports, but it all depends on what is the issue that is at hand. If you're saying there is traffic loss or some issues like this, clients not getting an IP address or some kind of traffic loss, so you need to know exactly where the loss is happening. You need to pinpoint that, and then start troubleshooting on it. Unless otherwise, you would be spending a lot of time, and the customers are also going to get frustrated. It's frustrating for you also because you're spending a lot of time looking for a needle in a haystack actually, and you're not going to get that information as well. So it's going to take a lot of time. So this is one way you can use to. I've got several cases actually. In fact, uh, where we are able to find out what is actually happening in the network and pinpoint to the customer. You can use this Wireshark capture and show them actually as to what is happening, and you can actually uh, tell them what to do as well. Contact the vendor of the DHCP server or whatever has to be done. So let's see. Yeah, I think we have covered a lot of cases related to Wireshark access. So you should be able to take a capture, show it to the customer, and resolve your issues related to this. So we just go into a few uh, questions and answers to how you can use Wireshark. So first question would be, what are the platforms on which Wireshark can be used? So the options are Windows, Linux, OS, Solaris, or all of the above. So the answer would be all of the above because it can be used on everything. All of the options. Generally, all the uh, client stations that you are using, whatever operating system they are running, doesn't matter. So the answer would be all of the above. So the second question is, what are the two mirroring modes that are available on Extreme switches? Uh, First option is standard and non-standard. Second is standard and enhanced. Third is mode 1 and mode 2. Or is it dynamic and static? So the option would be standard and enhanced. These are the two modes that are supported on the Extreme switches. Standard is supported on all switches. Uh, Enhanced, not on everything. On the older models of 450 and some BDs, also it is not supported. So the third question is, when configuring mirroring, the monitor port should not be part of any VLAN, whether it is true or false. So when configuring mirroring, the monitor port should not be part of any VLAN. It is actually true because whatever uh, mirror traffic that you're sending to the monitor port, that port should not be part of any VLAN because you are going to send information about multiple VLANs and all to that particular monitor port. So for that reason, it should not be part of any VLAN. So when you're configuring it, the switch itself would give you this information stating that this port should not belong to any particular VLAN, and hence it will ask you whether you can go ahead and make that port a monitor port. So that's all for today. I hope this session was useful to you. Um, I mean, there is a lot of information still you can cover on Wireshark, but you can only, as you use the tool, only you can get information about that. So, what I would suggest is everybody should start using this tool. It also helps you understand what is actually happening in one particular layer, whether it's layer 2, layer 3, or layer 4. So, start using the tool for troubleshooting. It's also proof as to what is that you can use to show your partners or your customers or your colleagues that as to what is actually happening in the network, and it it increases your knowledge as well. So that's all for today, and thank you for watching. So see you everybody maybe in the next session. Thank you all, and I hope you guys have a good day. Bye bye.